Hey everyone, this is Kelsey and this is Essentially Book. Thank you for stopping by my channel and we got another day of Bookmas. So today I wanted to take stock of my book of the month books. I am currently trying to read 2 more by the end of the year to hit the reading challenge on book of the month, which they do like a cool reading challenge where you kind of have to hit like 3 things to get the big prize. So I think it's like review 5 books, read 15 books, and then like read from 6 different genres or something. So I've got 2 of the 3. I'm working to get 15 books read in 2024 so that I can get a hat from book of the month. And I am reading The Intern right now, which I'm almost done. And then I need to pick 1 more book to read by the end of the year. But I also need to read a book for my book club on the 3rd of January, which is a pretty heavy book. So I'm kind of thinking I'll have to do audiobooks to hit this goal. But the hat is like, I can't remember what it is, but it's a pretty cool thing. And so the rule with this challenge is it has to be from 2023 on forward. So it kind of makes it different. So I've read 18 book of the month books so far this year, which one of my goals was to read down my shelf. And I think I started with like 45. So I've read almost half of the books off my book of the month shelf, which is really good. And I've read a lot of the books that I've like gotten this year. So that's pretty awesome too. I think going forward, I'm trying to not, if I am not like loving any of the books, I'm trying to skip my book of the month books or skip that month, and not feeling guilty about it. But like I got my free book for my birthday. So this month, this month, it's still December. I grabbed Same as It Ever Was by Claire Lombardo. And then like book of the year is coming up where you get to pick that book. I think it's in March. So I know I'm keeping my account active for that long, but I'm kind of toying with canceling my account because I get so many NetGalley books that tend to be book of the month. So there were quite a few months this year I actually skipped because I was like, I've either read the books I want to read or I can get them on NetGalley or from the library. Like it just, I don't know. I feel like I've been with book of the month since 2016 and I just feel like their selections are kind of going downhill. When I first started, there were a lot more literary books, which I really liked. And now it's kind of just like popular fiction, 1 literary, romance, a fantasy, like a couple thrillers. And I mean, they still have the books that I want to read generally, but they tend to be add-ons. And so I'm just like the main selections, I feel like I've skipped more than I've picked this year. I don't know. Or I'm getting a book just to get a book and I don't really like that feeling. So I'm gonna kind of see how 2025, the beginning of the year goes. But I've also noticed like in some of the book of the month groups that I am in, people are feeling the same. Like some of us long-time readers are feeling like it's gotten more commercial, which I think that's good. Like more people are reading, but the quality of the picks I feel like has maybe decreased a little bit. And if you love the books that they pick, good, that's awesome. I just think like if you've been a long-term member like I have, it's pretty wild. Like maybe I'll scroll through like my bookshelf of all the books I read from book of the month over the years, so you guys can kind of see like what I've picked and all of that. But I don't know. I'm just feeling like I'm not vibing with the picks anymore. And because I'm trying to, read down my shelf, maybe not subscribing to book of the month might be a good thing, less consumerism. And maybe I can focus more on like NetGalleys this year. So I don't know. I'm conflicted in that regard. But like I said, I've read 18 books. I'm in the middle of 19 and then I'm hoping to get to 20 so that I can get a hat because if I'm going to do this, I might as well get a prize out of it. In the past years, the prizes for hitting the goals were really dumb. So like one was like a sword or something. I don't know. So this year I'm like, a hat is cool. And I think the hat has a cute saying on it too. So I was going to go through the books that I've read from book of the month. And then I'm going to go look and see how many more book of the month books I have to read. Okay, sorry. It's a little bit later in the day because work got nuts. So I wrote all of my book of the months down. I am going to go through them. I actually read 19, not 18 so far because I forgot to write down A Fate Inked in Blood. I am going to talk about kind of the ones that just weren't hits for me and then go from there. I will say overall, I pick pretty good books. Like overall, there's a lot of good books in here that I read that surprised me. I will say some of my least favorite, and I'm going to like highlight these as I talk because I'll forget. Man, I like honestly liked quite a few of them. So American Fire was a nonfiction book about this string of arsons in Virginia, and it just was trying to be something bigger than it was, and the author was trying to make all these profound things about rural America. It just didn't really track for me. So that was kind of a dislike. And then The Wonder by Emma Donoghue was just boring. It was a very quiet novel about a girl who stops eating, and towards the end it turns super dark. I just, like, the writing was really good, but the story just didn't do it for me. Then really everything else was overall pretty good. So next I'm going to talk about some books that surprised me. The first one is Dragon Fruit, and this is like it's young adult fantasy. The cover was gorgeous. It was just such a fun book. I read it in a day. It's about a girl, there's like this pirate. It takes place in like the Pacific. I kind of think like the Pacific Islands area, and like it's magical, but not like a huge bit of world building. So like if you struggle with world building and fantasy, I think this is a really good entry book. I really, really liked it. And then another surprise for me was Emma in the Night, and this is a super old book of the month book that I had, but it's about like two sisters who go missing and then they come back. One sister comes back, and kind of their backstory. It deals with trauma, psychology, and I'm not a big thriller reader, so when one works for me, it really works. And then in that vein, another one that I really liked and was just kind of surprised by was Things We Do in the Dark. And again, that's a dark murder book. Just as far as like, it kept me entertained, it was believable, and I was really rooting for the characters. So that was another thriller that really surprised me. Normal People, I guess I would put in here. It was my first Sally Rooney, and I did a vlog on it earlier this year where I went back and forth on whether it was like a 2-star book or a 4-star book, because the characters were not redemptive. They made bad decisions, but it was also a very real book. Like, these characters were real people doing things that real people do. Like, you kind of can get stuck into toxic cycles with people, and sometimes coming back to them is comfortable because it's all you ever knew. And like, both of them were so bad for each other, but like they loved each other genuinely in a way as well. And it just really did it for me. Now, she doesn't use quotation marks, which is hard, but eventually you just get used to it. And then another book that kind of surprised me a lot, actually, was The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Ally Carter. I just finished it. It's like an Agatha Christie inspired locked room mystery romance between two authors who write, like, one is a James Patterson author-esque, and then one is a cozy mystery writer, and they're like tasked with solving this crime from a writer that invites them to her very rural estate in England. And it was just so much fun. It was a great Christmas time read. All right, and then a few other book of the month books I read this year that were fine, like, you know, Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. She writes just really fun magical realism with some depth. If you like practical magic, I would definitely recommend her books. And it took place in a apartment complex, very found family-esque. It was fun. And then we read Black Cake, which I liked but didn't love. It was actually a book club pick for one of my in real life book clubs last month. And there were just so many like gaping plot holes that we all were like, oh, they brought this up and then nothing happened. And just like all this stuff happened in the book. It was really easy to read, but it almost felt like the author was trying to do so much that like so many things could have been books in and of itself. So I liked it a lot, but I do agree, like there was a lot going on. And then Marrying the Ketchups is one that was just really fun. It had been on my shelf forever and I'm glad I got to it, but it's basically about a family after the death of their grandpa who runs this family restaurant, and the kids come home and, you know, just like what society says you should do, what you're doing now, having like the thoughts of your family on you, like just all the pressure. You guys can hear my child, so that's fun. And then the next book that was like, okay, like I'm just gonna put it here even though it has a place here later, is Where the Library Hides. And then some of my very favorite books. Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman. This is part of the Practical Magic series. I love her writing so much, and this is about Maria, the very founder of the family, and how like the magic comes to be in that family and the curses that become in practical magic. Like it is so good, and it like went everywhere from like Salem witch trials to New York City back when America was being founded. It starts in England. It was so good. And then the next book that just blew me out of the water was What the River Knows, and then the sequel was Where the Library Hides by Isabel Abanez. This is like The Mummy meets magic meets romantasy, but it's very closed to door. It's young adult. I had so much fun with the series. It was escapist. It has archaeology. You're looking for Cleopatra. It was so good. And like the two of them, they were exactly what I needed this year, and I really ended up enjoying them a ton. And then the next two books are books that are like probably in the running for favorite books of the year. So spoiler. So Table for Two by Amor Towles is his short story collection. There's a novella at the end from Rules of Civility. I just love how he writes about the human experience. He's so good. He's so funny. And then Ministry of Time. This book has gotten a ton of hype, and I was hesitant to read it. And this book does a lot. It's a romance, it's a time travel story. It kind of is in the vein of Babel. So it does talk a lot about like colonialism and how we control history, and how governments kind of use propaganda sometimes to determine the narrative. And it just really worked for me. If you didn't love Babel, this might be a simpler, not simple, but this might be a better read for you because it's a little more action-packed, whereas Babel gets pretty deep. And then The Lion Women of Tehran is another book I just adored. This is about friendship in Iran. I love this author. And then Shark Heart. Again, okay, so these 4 books are like in my running, just spoiler. But this is an incredible book about grief where a woman's husband is turning into a great white shark, and then like what that means. And then it also deals with this woman's mother and her past. It is such a lovely book about grief and love and motherhood, and it kind of just really blew me out of the water. Then I really liked P.S. I Hate You. I just finished it. And I really like books with a grief component, and this is a rom-com, but it just has grief in the background. It really worked for me. It was one I just kind of inhaled, and I needed it at the time. And then A Fadington Blood. This is a Norse retelling romantasy. Loved it. Cannot wait for the second one. So those are all the books I've read so far this year. I'm currently reading The Intern, and then I think I'm going to read Paper Names because I think I can get through those fast. I'm almost done with The Intern, which is a legal thriller, kind of like a corrupt police force drug trial, where a girl's brother is essentially framed, and she ends up clerking for the judge who's over this case, who may be corrupt, and then she gets pulled into this like really wild thing. I really liked it. I'm really liking it so far. So, okay. And then looking at my shelves, I've got I have A Woman Is No Man, and then down here, I've got A Song to Drown Rivers that I need to read. All right, and then here's my other book of the month shelf. So I had 6 upstairs that I haven't read yet, and I have quite a few on this one. It's got 1, 2, 3, I think I have 24 book of the months left to read for next year. So that's a good number. I've whittled it down from like 60 plus, so that's awesome. All right, that's it for this video, you guys. I will see you on the next day of Bookmas. Bye.